Good morning. Welcome to the disciplinary meeting of the Board of Vocational Nursing and Psychiatric Technicians. This meeting is being held on Thursday, August 25th, 2016 at Hilton Los Angeles Airport, 5711 West Century Boulevard, Los Angeles, California. I would like to call this meeting to order. I am Samantha James Perez, Board President. Will the board members please introduce themselves, starting on my far left?
Donna Norton, LVN member.
John Vertito, VN educator.
Bernice Basti Martinez, public member.
Tammy Indozo, LVN member.
Good morning, Andrew Moreno, public member, board vice president.
Good morning, I'm Todd DeBronstein and I am a psychiatric technician member.
Good morning, I'm Evie Nevada, I'm a public member.
Good morning, John Deerking, public member.
Thank you. Before I turn over the meeting to Administrative Law Judge Cox, who will be presiding over the hearings today, I would like to introduce the vocational nursing and psychiatric technician schools that are present today and have voluntarily signed in. Please stand and be recognized when I state your school's name. We'll start off with the psychiatric technician program we have, San Bernardino Valley Community College. Good morning. American Career College, St. Francis. Good morning. And then I have American Medical Sciences Center. Are you here today? Angeles College. Welcome. Brightwood College, North Hollywood. And Chaffee College, Chino Campus. Next, we have Downey Adult School. Glendale Career College. Thank you for being here. Hacienda de la Puente. Wow. You guys are awake this morning. High Desert Medical College. Do we have Intercoast College Fairfield here? No. LAUSD Maxine Walters Employment Preparation Center. Good morning. Medical Allied Career College. Good morning, welcome. And I see this highlighted, I'm not sure if you're here, Pacific College? No? Yes. Platt College, Alhambra. Next we have Premier Career College. Professional Medical Careers Institute. Wow. San Bernardino Adult School. Welcome. So you're very enthusiastic today. Santa Barbara City College. And then I have two that signed in on the voluntary sign-in sheet, San Bernardino Community College, PT. That was already. And then all it says is GCCSEC. I don't know what that is. Okay. Is there any school that did not sign in but would like to be recognized? No? Hi, Cypress. Thank you for being here today. We appreciate your presence. That takes us to agenda item number 8, public comment not on the agenda. Individuals may appear before the board at this time to discuss items not on the agenda. The board may not discuss or take action on any item raised during this public comment section, except to decide whether to place the matter on the agenda of a future meeting. Is there any individual that would wish to comment to the board? Any public comment? Okay, seeing none. Just a little housekeeping business here. The purpose of the hearings today is for the board to consider petitions for reinstatement of licenses that have been revoked by the board. These proceedings are a serious matter and proper decorum must be maintained. Please take a moment right now to ensure that your phones are turned off or in silent mode. Also, please make sure that you keep as quiet as possible during the hearing and that you refrain from making comments or expressions that may disrupt the hearings. So I love the enthusiasm that everyone had this morning for their schools, and now we've expressed our enthusiasm. Now we have to remain really quiet during the hearings. This is a formal proceeding, so just make sure you're not chatting, making comments, or any expressions, and please have your phones turned off. Your cooperation in keeping these proceedings orderly is appreciated. Now I will turn the proceedings over to our administrative law judge.
Good morning. One thing I'd like to point out to you, I'm Administrative Law Judge Juliet Cox from the State Office of Administrative Hearings. One reason to keep quiet during the proceedings is that we'll have a court reporter present who will be taking down the proceedings, and we need to make sure that the reporter is able to take everything down in an accurate manner. One thing you'll notice as we conduct these proceedings is that occasionally we'll describe what happens or refer to things by numbers or letters, or I may you'll find that I repeat myself from hearing to hearing because each hearing is its own little formal proceeding, and the reporter's record of that hearing will need to include all of that information. So with that, I'd like to call our first petitioner. The first petition on today's agenda is the petition of Evie Nevada. So I'd like to invite the petitioner and her counsel to come to the petitioner's table here. All right, let's go on the record. We're now on the record in the matter of the petition for license reinstatement of Evie Navarro. This matter has been assigned Office of Administrative Hearings case number 2016-071149, and it's scheduled for hearing today on Thursday, August 25th, 2016 in Los Angeles. My name is Juliet Cox. I'm an administrative law judge with the Office of Administrative Hearings, and I'm assigned today to assist the Board of Vocational Nursing and Psychiatric Technicians, which has convened to hear this petition today. I'd like to begin by taking the appearances of the representatives for the parties, beginning with the representative from the Attorney General's office.
Good morning, Your Honor. My name is Veronica Keller, Deputy Attorney General, appearing on behalf of the State of California, pursuant to Business and Professions Code Sections 2878.7 and Government Code Section 11522.
Your Honor, excuse me, can she speak into the microphone?
Oh, even closer? Okay. Okay, I'll start again. Good morning, Your Honor. My name is Veronica Keller, Deputy Attorney General, appearing on behalf of the people of the State of California, pursuant to Business and Profession Code Sections 2878.7 and Government Code Section 11522.
Thank you.
Good morning, Your Honors and members of the Board. Scott Harris on behalf of the petitioner, Evie Navarro, who is also present and sitting to my left.
Thank you. So we'll begin today by asking the Deputy Attorney General to introduce the matter and the petition itself.
Yes, Your Honor. First, I'd like to mark for identification and offer into evidence as Exhibit 1 the original petition packet with accompanying documents. The board members and petitioner have been provided a copy of the same set of this exhibit. The documents consist of the following items: the petition for reinstatement with supporting documents, including Ms. Navarro's petition for reinstatement dated January 7th, 2016, the petitioner's license certification, the notice of hearing and related correspondence, and the board's 2011 decision revoking petitioner's license. I would now like to offer a summary of Ms. Navarro's history with the board. Ms. Navarro was issued a vocational nurse license by the board on May 22, 2007. Prior to receiving her license, on July 31, 2006, Ms. Navarro was convicted of a misdemeanor DUI for driving under the influence. She was also convicted a few months later, on October 17, 2006, for driving a motor vehicle while her license was suspended. Additionally, after receiving her vocational nurse license on January 5th of 2009, Ms. Navarro was convicted of an additional DUI. Ms. Navarro was pulled over by the CHP for weaving and crossing over the divider line while driving between 75 and 90 miles per hour on the freeway. As a result of this conviction, Ms. Navarro was placed on probation for 36 months, with terms and conditions which included the completion of community service. On or about March 12, 2010, Ms. Navarro failed to appear for her post-sentencing to provide completion of the community service requirement. As a result, her probation was revoked and a $35,000 bench warrant was issued. On November 23rd of 2010, the board filed an accusation against Ms. Navarro's license. On July 28, 2011, a hearing was heard before an administrative law judge. The ALJ found that Ms. Navarro was not rehabilitated at that time. Ms. Navarro had not one, but 2 DUI convictions, and the ALJ pointed out that Ms. Navarro had violated the terms of her probation for her second DUI, and at the time of the hearing was still on criminal probation for her second DUI conviction. As a result, the ALJ's proposed decision ordered revocation of Ms. Navarro's license, and she was ordered to pay costs of $6,825. These costs are still outstanding to the state. The board adopted this decision, and it became effective on December 10th of 2011. Ms. Navarro is petitioning the board for reinstatement of her license today. I'm now prepared to proceed with questions for petitioner unless she would like to make an opening statement.
Mr. Harris?
Thank you very much, Your Honor. As an administrative matter, we have 5 supplemental documents which I'm prepared to provide to the board. I can approach or provide them to a staff member if you'd like. May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Would you like me to hand them out?
If you give them to me, then I'll pass them out.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, please continue.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. A true and correct copy has also been provided to Ms. Keller for review. I have marked these as Exhibits A67 through A71. That's a continuation of the bait stamping of the petitioner's packet found behind Exhibit A.
All right, they'll be so marked for our record then.
Thank you very much. As a brief opening, Your Honor, today, members of the board, we thank you for your time. We understand the important role you play in public protection. And Ms. Cuevas Navarro is very appreciative of the opportunity to present her matter to you. Today is both a sad and happy day. Sad because we're sitting before you because Ms. Cuevas Navarro lost her license 4 years ago. Happy because over the last 4 years, Ms. Cuevas Navarro has taken the opportunity to not only better herself, but to be able to show you and those behind me that rehabilitation is possible. The evidence will show that full compliance with criminal probation was met, that the crimes mentioned by Ms. Keller have been fully expunged pursuant to Penal Code Section 1203.4, that Ms. Cuevas Navarro has sought additional education quite extensively, finding herself achieving 3 AA degrees and well on her way to becoming a drug and alcohol counselor. Ms. Cuevas Navarro has humbled herself in asking a number of parties, from clinicians and professors to friends, and family to write reference letters on behalf of her and your review today, demonstrating not only her commitment to her non-use of alcohol, but her rehabilitation and her commitment to nursing as she moves forward. We believe that the evidence will show that the criterion that this board will use in rehabilitation have been extensively met, and that reinstatement is appropriate in this matter, and that if this board shall grant reinstatement of her license, that she be given the opportunity to pay the cost of the cost of recovery for prosecution and investigation that this board incurred 4 years ago over a payment plan. We thank you again for your time, and I look forward to presenting not only Ms. Cuevas Navarro, but one additional witness, a friend by the name of Jessica Cervantes. Thank you.
Would you like to begin with Ms. Cuevas Navarro?
Actually, if I may, Your Honor, work backwards, but with Ms. Cervantes first.
Certainly.
May I have my client and Ms. Cervantes change seats?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
All right. I'd like to swear you in as a witness, please. Would you please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm, under penalty of perjury, that the testimony you'll give here today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Would you please go ahead and state your full name and spell it so that our court reporter will have an accurate record of who spoke to us today?
Hello, my name is Jessica Cervantes. It's Jessicacervantes.
Thank you. Mr. Harrison.
Thank you very much. Ms. Cervantes, how do you know Ms. Cuevas Navarro?
I met Eva in junior high through her cousin.
And approximately how many years ago was that?
Your Honor, excuse me. Can we have her speak into the microphone?
Yes, if you can move it a little closer so that it will be audible help here. Thank you.
I'll repeat my question so that it's clear. How many years ago did you meet Ms. Navarro in junior high school?
Around 18 years.
And have you consistently been in touch with Ms. Cuevas Navarro in that 18-year period?
Yes, I have.
Do you know why you're here today?
Yes, I do.
What is your understanding of today's proceeding?
She got her LVN license revoked due to 2 DUIs.
And are you testifying here on her behalf and in support of her reinstatement of license?
Yes, I am.
Can you please tell us, what do you do for a living?
I work for a mental health rehabilitation called Hillmont, and I'm still continuing my education.
And what type of mental health rehabilitation do you perform?
I do all sorts of things, from teaching them to cook, medical billing for them, just everyday basis, things that they need to learn so they can move on and be able to live on their own.
And what types of patients or individuals are you working with?
I work with patients that are schizophrenic, bipolar, drug addiction, alcohol addictions. It's a combination of everything in there.
And you also suggested that you were furthering your education. What type of education?
Pursuing criminal justice.
Now, have you ever attended school with Ms. Cuevas Navarro?
Yes, I have. I actually suggested that she take the courses that she took for drug and alcohol counseling. We also did a field experience together at an eating disorder, mental health rehabilitation, and also attended through field experience like NAs, AA meetings and stuff like that that were required.
And where did you and Ms. Cuevas Navarro attend school?
Oxnard College.
And specifically, do you recall what the name of the program that you two were involved in?
I think it was called Pacific View in Oxnard.
And what specifically were you studying?
Drug and alcohol, for drug and alcohol counselor.
What kind of student was Ms. Cuevas Navarro in your experience?
Oh, she was the student that had to get an A. The student that would push forward to, she would not accept anything but an A.
Now, are you aware of why Ms. Cuevas Navarro lost her LVN license 4 years ago?
Yes, I am.
What is your understanding?
She got 2 DUIs and she got it revoked.
Were you close to Ms. Cuevas Navarro at that time?
Yes, I was.
Can you tell us how was she affected, if at all, emotionally by the loss of that license?
Well, she lost what she loved to do. So it definitely pushed her to move forward since she ended up getting pregnant in 2011. And ever since her pregnancy, she changed and moved forward, attended school, graduated, had a child. She has 2 kids and a stepchild that she's helping raise.
Now, you said that she changed after the loss of her license. Can you elaborate on how she changed?
Towards just family things, doing family, just family stuff in school.
Prior to the loss of her license and at the time that Ms. Cuevas Navarro received her DUIs, were you aware of how Ms. Cuevas Navarro interacted socially when she would drink alcohol?
Well, she would drink in social events.
Did she drink a lot?
No.
Now, have you seen Ms. Cuevas Navarro over the last 4 years drink alcohol?
I have not.
Do you know if she does drink alcohol?
I don't think she does. She's all about her family and her kids.
Do you have any opinion as her friend that's known her for 18 years as to what may have contributed to her choices and her DUIs back now, 6 to 8 years ago?
She ended up going to counseling, and that helped her out a lot to go through whatever she was going through.
Are you suggesting that you think that she was trying to overcome something personally when she was drinking and driving?
Yes.
In the past?
Yes.
You suggested that she went to counseling. Was that prior to or since the loss of her license?
Since the loss of her license, it helped her see what the choices she was making was affecting her life.
Now, do you think that Ms. Cuevas Navarro is committed to become a licensed vocational nurse?
I do.
Do you think that she will suffer a DUI again?
I do not.
Why do you have such a conviction?
I wouldn't be sitting here saying that if I knew that she possibly could, because I could end up at the hospital and she could be the one helping me. So I wouldn't be helping her if I knew that that was a possibility of her doing again. She's gotten all the help. She's graduated college. She has a family now.
Have you had the opportunity to speak to Ms. Cuevas Navarro about how or what the reinstatement of her license means to her?
Yes, she's very nervous about it. She just really wants it, and she's been pushing for it.
Do you know what she'd like to do with that license?
She'd like to get her job back,
And do you know what she'd like to do as an LVN?
possibly work at a hospital, help people.
Your Honors, Your Honor and members of the board, I have nothing further.
Ms. Keller, do you have any questions for this witness?
Yes, Your Honor, I do have a couple of questions. Ms. Cervantes, you stated that you have not seen Ms. Navarro drink in the past 4 years. Is that correct?
Yes,
I'm curious, are you with Ms. Navarro on a daily basis?
I am not.
Okay, so there is a possibility that she may have had a drink in the past 4 years, correct?
I guess.
Okay, that's it, Your Honor. I have no further questions of this particular witness.
Okay. I'd like to make sure that the members of the board have an opportunity to ask questions as well, and I will start here to my far right with Board Member Dierking.
Thank you, Your Honor. Counsel, does your client have a current income?
Right now, I'd like to invite the board to ask questions of this witness. My understanding is that
nothing of this
Ms.
witness, Your Honor.
Yes, I believe that Ms. Navarro may also testify, and questions
thank you.
directed to her will be appropriate later.
Thank you.
I don't have questions for this witness.
I have no questions.
No questions.
No questions?
No questions?
I have a question. Ms. Cervantes, do you have any certification, formalized training in rehabilitation?
I do, through the
what-
Oxnard College.
I'm sorry?
I do, through the Oxnard College.
And they are?
Drug and alcohol counseling and drug and alcohol counseling in the criminal justice system.
So this is an actual certification registered with the state? Or did you just take the courses?
It's through the college.
So you have the classes?
Yes, a certification through the college.
So do you have a license?
I do not.
Okay. How long have you worked in mental health?
Around 2 years.
As an aide?
Not as an aide. The only thing I don't do is I don't distribute medication.
Okay. And I understand you're a student in criminal justice?
Yes.
So how's the coordination between a criminal justice student and a alcohol rehabilitation certification match?
Like, how are they together? Or... I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
How does your classes in alcohol drug rehabilitation match your criminal justice study?
Well, a lot of the time, people that have a mental illness or have suffered from, committed a DUI also come with a criminal background.
Did your, when did you finish these classes?
Two summers ago, I got the drug and alcohol counseling, and last summer I got the drug and alcohol counseling in the criminal justice system.
Okay. And Ms. Cuevas Navarro had her encounters with this board 4 years ago, is that correct? 4 or 5 years ago?
4. Yes.
Okay. So were you advising her on, you said you told her what classes to take for rehabilitation?
Yes.
And this is while you were a student studying this?
Yes.
So you weren't qualified, you were acting as a student saying you should take these classes. These are what I'm recommending because I'm a student in that area.
Well, I just felt that those type of classes she could benefit from.
Okay. But you were making those recommendations
Yes.
as a student?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
No questions.
Thank you. May this witness be excused, Mr. Harris?
May I ask one follow-up question, Your Honor?
You may.
In response to this most recent line of questioning, were you recommending or discussing with Ms. Cuevas Navarro to join your studies in drug counseling because you were advising her clinically or because you have been a friend for 18 years?
Because I've been a friend for 18 years, and I actually think a lot of people could benefit for those classes, especially people that are studying criminal justice, because, like I said, those go hand in hand together.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
All right. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank
Ms.
you.
Cervantes.
Thank you. Okay, good.
You may go. Thank you. At this time, we would call Ms. Cuevas Navarro to testify on her own behalf.
All right. Would you please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you'll give here today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Please also go ahead and spell your full name so that the reporter will have it accurate.
My first name is Evie. My last name is Navarro.
Thank you, Mr. Harrison.
Thank you. Good morning. How are you today, Eva?
I'm good.
And where are you from?
I'm from Oxnard, California.
And how old are you?
I'm 31.
Can you tell us a little bit about your family?
I have 2 children, and I have a stepchild, a stepson that I'm also helping raise.
Are you married?
I'm engaged to be married.
And how old are your children?
I have a 4-year-old, a 15-year-old, and my stepson's 19.
And when did you have your 4-year-old child?
I had him in October of 2011.
Was that in or around the time that you were before the board?
Yes, I was actually pregnant when I went before the administrative law judge in 2011.
Now, can you tell us what is your educational background?
I was educated as an LVN. I went to Oxnard College and I received 3 degrees. I received an AA in Addictive Disorder Studies, that is the program at Oxnard College. That's actually an Associates of Science, excuse me. I got an AA in General Studies with an emphasis in Social and Behavioral Sciences. And I also received an AA in General Studies with an emphasis in Natural Science.
Now, so the record is clear. First, when were you educated as a licensed vocational nurse?
I started school in the summer of 2005.
And where did you attend school?
I went to Simi Valley Adult School.
And at that time, how old were you?
I was 20 years old.
Do you recall what year you graduated from Simi Valley?
2006.
Do you recall when you were licensed by the board as a vocational nurse?
I believe it was 2007.
Now, you also mentioned 3 AA degrees that you've obtained. Were those prior to or after the loss of your license?
After the loss of my license.
Do you recall in what years you obtained your AA degrees?
I received them in 2015.
Now, before we get to why we're here today, can you please tell us about your employment history as an LVN prior to the loss of your license?
I worked at Country Oaks Care Center in Oxnard, and I also worked at Country Oaks, I worked at Country Villa in Oxnard, and I worked at Country Oaks Care Center in Santa Maria, and I worked for almost 3 years for Maxim Healthcare, and I had various assignments, many lasting more than 6 months.
Did you enjoy your role as a vocational nurse?
I enjoyed all the jobs and all the roles I had as a vocational nurse, yes.
What did you enjoy about being a licensed vocational nurse?
I believe that I helped improve the quality of people's lives as a nurse, and that's why I became a nurse in the first place. I feel that nurses help people get better every day.
Now, you're here today to obtain your license back from this board, hopefully. Why would you like to have your license reinstated?
I want my license reinstated because there's nothing that I love more than being a nurse. I've always wanted to be a nurse. It's my dream. It really is. And now that I have the other education as an alcohol and drug counselor, it would really allow me to help people and bring the medical aspect of addiction and what happens to your body with the mental health aspect of drug addiction and alcohol addiction and substance abuse in general. I think it would be really beneficial to everyone.
Now, do you recall why you had your license revoked?
Yes, I got 2 DUIs and I was non-compliant with my probation.
Now, at the time of your first DUI, do you recall how old you were?
Yes, I had just turned 21 years old.
And at the time of your second DUI, do you recall how old you were?
Yes, I was 23 years old.
Now, do you think that your life today is the same as it was when you were 21 and 23 years old?
No, it's completely different. My life is stable.
What contributed to an instability when you were 21 to 23 years old?
It's difficult for me to try to explain why I got 2 DUIs without talking about my past and my childhood. I had a very traumatic, difficult childhood. I was sexually abused as a child. I had a daughter 16, and I married her father, who was psychologically and physically abusive. And when you sustain that type of trauma without being treated, it's very difficult to come back from that on your own. I didn't realize it at the time, but what was typical going out, partying, and drinking at a young age quickly escalated because I began self-medicating for symptoms that I was having, such as anxiety and some PTSD symptoms. And the problem escalated, and I was in denial about some of the symptoms that I was having.
Now, did you ever seek counseling related to any of these issues prior to the loss of your license?
No, not consistently.
How did the loss of your license change your approach to your own life?
It completely changed my approach. When I went before the administrative law judge in 2011, I was still in my downward spiral. And even though I was on my way coming up out of that spiral, it was still not enough at that time. I was still not compliant with my probation, but it wasn't premeditated. It wasn't that I didn't want to be compliant. It was just the second DUI was really difficult in my life. It was devastating. It was devastating financially. It hit all aspects of my life, and on paper, it looks as though I just didn't want to do it. I was being disrespectful to the judge, but that I assure the board that that was not the case. I was having a hard time. And not too long after my license was revoked, I actually was able to close the case on my probation. Not too long after, I believe it was in February, I had paid the money that I owed to the court, and I had finished all requirements of my probation. I just needed more time. I needed more time. And I know how it looks on paper, but I can assure the board that it wasn't intentional. I was just having a hard time.
Now, did you ultimately comply with your criminal court-ordered probation?
I did, and I completed all the requirements. I paid the court all the money I needed to pay, which were all issues when I went before the administrative law judge in 2011.
And did you ultimately have those criminal convictions expunged?
I did. I had those criminal convictions expunged from my record.
If I could direct, just so that for your records, starting at A20, also known as Exhibit E, is where the evidence of expungements are as marked and admitted in petitioner's packet. In addition to obtaining expungement, did you begin seeking counseling?
I did. I began seeking counseling. I went through Clínicas del Camino Real in Oxnard, and I also went through Cal Lutheran Community Counseling Center.
And from what did you learn from the counseling that you obtained?
I learned to identify my symptoms. I learned mindfulness. I learned cognitive behavioral therapy, how to properly use it on myself, how to identify when I'm having trouble, how to ask for help, what resources are out there for me. It was really about teaching me how to manage my symptoms and how to cope with stress, how to manage anger. I dealt with many of the trauma that I didn't want to deal with, that I was running away from. And I feel so much better. It was truly a gift that I gave myself as a result of what happened.
Did you attend any AA, or otherwise known as Alcoholics Anonymous meetings?
I did. I went, I'm not sure how many, but I went as a requirement for the drinking and driver program, the 18-month drinking driving program that I went to, and I also went for school purposes. Our class, a couple of our classes required us to attend AA, NA meetings, and I also attended other 12-step meetings, so I'm familiar with the 12-step program.
Now, did you relate to the AA meetings?
I did not relate. I did not relate to the cravings that come from alcohol addiction. I did not relate to the withdrawal symptoms, and I didn't, even though I had some big effects from my drinking, I didn't relate to the actual rock bottom, the clinical rock bottom that an alcoholic will have.
Now, have you continued to drink alcohol since you lost your license?
No, I've been sober since February 14th, 2011, when I found out I was pregnant with my son. That's when I was smoking cigarettes. I also quit cigarettes. I just quit any mind-altering substance.
Why have you chosen to remain, as you use the term, sober from drinking alcohol?
I choose to remain sober because from what I know about anxiety, from what I know about PTSD and depression, it is contraindicated for anyone with any of those diseases to drink. It will make your symptoms worse, and the last thing that I want is to feel like how I felt at that time. I will do anything it takes to not ever go back to that place.
Now, we've talked with Ms. Cervantes and you a little bit about your education. Why did you choose to go into drug and alcohol counseling training?
After the revocation of my license, I was not trained in anything other than the medical field. I had been a CNA since I was 18 years old. It was one of the first jobs I ever had, and I had done nothing out of that field ever since. And after the revocation of my license, I was left with nothing. And I had no job skills and no other kind of job skills. So my friend Jessica suggested that I would be trained for a career, and I would also have the benefit of learning something beneficial to my life. And I think anybody who takes these classes will find something beneficial in their life, because you learn about the different types of dysfunctions that happen in people's families that you might not be aware of that are affecting your life. You will learn what addiction looks like, what substance abuse looks like, what mental health disorders are like, and how in combination they can wreak havoc in people's lives.
Now, where are you in the process of becoming a drug and alcohol counselor?
I'm currently registered with Katie as a student, and I'm awaiting to take my test to become a certified drug and alcohol counselor in September.
And at this time, members of the board, in your honor, I would direct you to what's marked as A68. And I'm showing Ms. Cuevas Navarro a document also marked A68. Can you please tell us what this document is?
It means that you get this type of registration when you are in classes, or you just have finished classes and you're waiting to take the California test, certification test.
Your Honor, if it's all right, I'll wait to collectively move them at the end. Now, in addition to your training as drug and alcohol counselor, have you taken any other training or education related to licensed vocational nursing?
I have. I just recently finished a nurse refresher course.
And how extensive was the nurse refresher course?
The course basically takes you from the fundamentals of nursing all the way to the end, pharmacology. It hits every single part of nursing.
And at this time, members of the board, in your honor, I would direct you to what's marked as A67, the first document behind the exhibit list. And I am showing a true and correct copy of this to Ms. Cuevas Navarro. Is this certificate of completion a true and correct copy of the certificate provided by the nurse refresher course?
Yes, it is.
Do you recall when you completed the nurse refresher course?
It was in July.
Of what year?
This year.
Thank you. Now, you touched upon this briefly. If your license as an LVN is reinstated, how would you like to use that? And if at all connected, how would that be connected to your drug and alcohol counseling certificate?
In many of the facilities that treat drug and alcohol addiction, there's nurses needed, And with my drug counseling background, I'll be more effective, excuse me, I'll be more effective as a nurse having that background. I believe that most nursing programs, whether they're LVN or RN, really don't really give you a strong educational background in those areas, in mental health and addiction. And I believe that you will see many of those patients, whether you work in the hospital or nursing home, you will see many people affected with these types of diseases. And I think having both the mental health background and the medical background will be beneficial anywhere where I go, whether it's the criminal justice systems, a methadone clinic, any type of drug rehab. I would really be an asset, and I will help many people.
Now, with your initial petition, you submitted, or do you recall submitting a series of letters of reference?
Yes.
Now, since that original petition was filed, did you obtain 3 additional letters of reference?
Yes.
At this time, Your Honor and members of the board, I would direct you to what are fate stamped or marked as A69 through A71, which I represent are first a letter from Tomas, T-O-M-A-S, Trejo, T-R-E-J-O, Frank Espinoza, E-S-P-I-N-O-Z-A, and Cynthia Navarro, N-A-V-A-R-R-O. I have a true and correct copy before me, and I would like to ask Ms. Cuevas Navarro, some questions really quickly. Are these 3 letters, as I've represented to the board and Judge Cox, true and correct copies of those that you obtained from Mr. Trejo, Mr. Espinoza, and Ms. Navarro?
Yes.
And who is Mr. Trejo?
He's a longtime friend.
And who is Mr. Espinoza?
Another longtime friend.
And who is Ms. Navarro?
My first cousin.
I believe collectively we've now talked about all marked supplemental exhibits, and at this time, Your Honor, I would move them as such.
Is there any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
All right, then exhibits A67 through 71 will also become part of our record in this case.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. Do you believe that you will obtain any DUIs again?
No, I don't.
Prior to these DUIs, had you ever had any other criminal misconduct?
No.
Subsequent to your DUIs, have you ever had any criminal misconduct?
No, I have not even received a speeding ticket since that time.
Prior to the loss of your license, had you ever been before the board in a disciplinary matter?
Never.
If the board were to be generous enough to reinstate your license, would you be willing to have a probational license?
Yes.
Would you be willing to undergo an evaluation to ensure that you are safe to practice?
Yes.
Would you be willing to have random bodily fluid testing to ensure that you are not consuming either drugs or alcohol?
Yes.
Would you be willing to have a supervisor or monitor that had to report to the board?
Yes.
Now, there was a cost incurred, or were costs incurred by this board in prosecuting your matter. Are you ready and willing to repay those to the board?
Yes.
Would you like to have the opportunity to be able to pay those over a cost or payment plan?
Yes, I would really appreciate that if the board is willing to offer that to me.
I just have a couple more questions. What support do you have in your life today to ensure that you can, in your own words, as discussed earlier, stay stable?
I have my fiance. I have my family. I have past counselors that I can go back to if I need them. I have all the skills that I learned through my counseling. I have friends, and I'm confident. And I have really looked at myself in the deepest way and to figure out what my weaknesses are, and I have educated myself to the best of my ability to ensure that this never happens again, to ensure that I never go back to that dark place, to make sure that I'm at peace.
What can you say to this board to ensure that you won't be before them again if they were to give your license back?
I have educated myself in all aspects when it comes to addiction and substance abuse, and I have figured out what got me to this place. I have gone back to my past and dealt with things that I never wanted to remember ever again, all in an effort to never go through this again. I'm willing to do whatever the board wants me to do to reassure you that I'm okay and I'm safe to practice, and I will do it as long as it takes.
Was there a point, do you remember ever sitting in the audience of a meeting like this?
I do. 10 years ago, I was 20 years old. I was sitting in the audience just like these students, and I never thought that I would be here. I never thought that my past would come back to haunt me. I felt I had a bright future and my whole life ahead of me. And I was confident, and when school was over, I still had my demons to deal with. I want to tell all the nursing students here that if you have something difficult in your life that you haven't dealt with, please get help. Do not rely on substances. Go get help, because it will show up in your life. You do not want to be here in this seat asking for your license back. Get help, and if you have a family member that's going through this, have some compassion. Help them and don't give up. That's what I want to say. I want to thank the board for the opportunity to be here. I want to thank the board for giving me my license the first time. And I want the board to know that I'm not just my mistakes, that I've also had a lot of victories too. I'm passionate and I really want to be a nurse. There's nothing more that I want in this world than to be a nurse.
I have nothing further, Your Honor.
Ms. Keller, do you have questions for the petitioner?
I do, Your Honor. Ms. Navarro, are you currently employed?
No, I'm not.
Do you have any source of income?
My fiance provides for me and my family.
Is that your only source currently?
Yes, I'm in the process of of taking the test for Katie, and my hope is that I will be able to get a job as a drug and alcohol counselor soon.
Okay, thank you. I have no further questions.
All right, then I'd like to offer the board an opportunity to ask questions, and we'll begin again with the board member to my far right, Board Member Deerking.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Navarro, I'm sorry for the trauma you've experienced in your life. I can't imagine that. But in pursuit of further education and training, it does seem like you have a great deal of insight as far as the issues that brought you before the board in the first place. And you indicated that other than familial support, you don't have any formal support or process to maintain your sobriety?
I moved in August of 2015 from Oxnard to Santa Maria, California. It's a little bit of more of a remote town, so the resources there are very limited. And because of my type of insurance, I'm actually on a waiting list for counseling with a psychologist. So I have no choice but to wait because the resources are so limited. But because I know so much about my condition and my symptoms, I know that if issues were to arise, then I can always go back to Oxnard and seek the treatment that I was getting before there. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to keep me stable.
Okay, and when were you in counseling last?
Right before I moved. So August of 2015.
Okay, thank you. You indicated that the entire process associated with your licensure issue had been devastating financially.
Yeah.
And that's why I wanted to know if you had a current income. You say you're not presently employed.
No, I'm not. My choice, it was a family decision that we made for me to focus on the children, and it was really a financial decision to, instead of spending what I would make as in a minimum wage job, which would be my reality because I have no other training, to just not have to pay childcare, basically, to take care of my child. It would be a huge cost to pay for childcare all day, and then my stepson had behavioral issues, and it was really a family decision for me to help monitor the children.
Okay, and the reason that you haven't paid the costs before now is because of the ongoing financial struggle you've been experiencing?
It was my understanding that I did not have to pay that amount until my license was reinstated.
Okay, so if there was anything that the board could do to eliminate or reduce the amount, that would be acceptable to you?
Yes, that would be acceptable for me. Thank you very much.
I have nothing else, Your Honor.
All right, Board Member Avella.
Good morning. I appreciate all the steps that you've taken and the education that you've done. It's impressive, and regardless, you should be proud of that, the work that you've put together. I do have a couple questions very specifically on your efforts to rehabilitate yourself from alcohol abuse, because I know the board is particularly interested in that. There's a lot of education, but I want to make sure we're fully understanding what you did in that area to rehabilitate yourself. And my question is partly derived from on page A4 of your packet, under where it has a box for rehabilitation program, it asks, are you attending or have you completed an alcohol or drug rehabilitation program? And you wrote no, but based upon your testimony and what's in the packet, I think you have, right? So I want to just make sure I understand that. So in the back, and as you discussed, you went through an 18-month drug and alcohol rehabilitation program, correct?
Yes.
Okay, this is with the Northeast Valley Health Corporation?
Yes.
Okay, now was that court-ordered or voluntary?
It was court-ordered.
Okay, and, okay. So that was an 18-month program, that wasn't inpatient, correct?
No, it was outpatient.
Okay. And I guess in that you received, is that where you went to the AA meetings? Is that where the support group meetings attendance went in?
Yes, I had one-on-one counseling, I had group meetings, and I also attended AA meetings. And then I also had to attend AA and NA meetings as a requirement for one of the classes I took at Oxnard College for the Addicted Disorder Studies program.
Okay, all right. And then in terms of, I guess, other work that you've done that might add support to your rehabilitation, so you're going through training to become a drug and alcohol counselor, and you have an associate's degree in addiction and disorder studies. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. I actually though find it a little interesting, your comment about you didn't relate to the AA meetings, and you didn't, I guess, feel it necessary to keep attending those, but you're applying and you're trained to be a drug and alcohol counselor.
Yes.
I mean, they're fairly similar, right? So, I mean, you're somebody who's saying that somebody who abuses alcohol needs a support group and counseling, but you didn't see a need to go to AA yourself.
I was more comfortable with dealing with my counselor and having a clinical a person with a clinical background deal with my mental health issues versus attending AA meetings. For me, I found it to be more beneficial. I needed treatment to deal with my trauma, and I needed somebody to help train me to deal with my day-to-day life and how to deal with that stress and how to find healthy ways to cope. I believe in the 12 steps. I believe they can be very beneficial in people's lives. But for me, I felt that I needed somebody with, like I said, with a clinical background to help me in my personal life. It's just the choice that I chose. It's how my counseling is how I chose to deal with my substance abuse.
Okay, so it's clearly you understand and recognize the need for rehabilitation. It's just the forum you wanted to choose.
Yes, this is the
and
forum.
this was the path that was better for you.
Exactly.
More effective. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Board Member Constantine.
I think you have a few questions. Kind of following up with my colleague here, did you mention earlier that you practice CBT as part of keeping your addiction under control?
Not addiction, just my symptoms. My symptoms of anxiety, depression, trauma if I'm having a flashback, just how to deal with anger.
Can you explain to us how that relates to your alcohol use in the past?
It's very difficult to find a way to relieve stress when you don't have any skills or knowledge or example of it. So when I'm having anxiety, then I use grounding techniques. I use mindfulness. I work on my breathing. I use imagery in my head, try to envision myself in a more relaxing place and work myself through it, monitor my thoughts and try to reframe things so they become easier to deal with.
Okay, thank you. What was your motivation behind getting or taking the nurse refresher course that we have in our packages?
My motivation was I wanted to be prepared in case that I do get my license back. I wanted to be up to date and give myself a reminder of procedures and just be ready right away in case I do get my license.
And how long is that course, or this course that you took?
The course is online. Many of the sections can take, you watch a video for however amount of time each section is. It could be anywhere from an hour to 2 hours video, and then after each section you take a test, and then at the end of each section you take the final test. So it took me some weeks to finish it, actually.
Okay. And yeah, I've seen the courses listed here at the bottom. So do you feel that you're adequately prepared after taking this and with the knowledge that you've already had?
I think I'm adequately prepared, and I am not going, I don't imagine me being away from nursing so long, being thrown back on the floor without some training and shadowing a nurse.
Okay. Maybe some orientation from
Your
employer.
I would definitely ask for an extended orientation.
Okay. And then when you say things like, I really want to be a nurse, are you using an RN nurse and an LVN nurse interchangeably? Or are you just referring to being a licensed vocational nurse?
I really want to be a licensed vocational nurse. It is my hope that eventually I will become an RN. I don't know when that might happen, when I will be able to go to school, but for right now, I really want to be an LVN, and to me, an LVN is a nurse.
And then Related to the cost recovery, your situation now, as described, earlier, is, yeah, I don't have a license. I'm not necessarily obligated to repay the cost recovery that it took to get involved into this case. I'm sure that, Mr. Harris is here per some billable agreement that you guys have worked out. That's fair and equitable. And it sounded like it was your intention and desire, kind of based on what you had said and what Mr. Harris had related, that you were okay with the full amount and paying it back on some kind of payment plan after you get your license, which would mean, hey, I got my license, now I can work again, my financial situation is better. So are you okay with repaying the full amount?
At this point, I'm really just willing to take whatever the board is willing to give me. I don't feel that I'm in a position to ask for favors. I really don't.
Do you feel the full amount is justified?
I'm not a legal expert. I don't know how the cost recovery works. I can't say.
The dollar amount that's listed,
It's a large amount of money.
Yeah.
I mean, to a lot of people, it'd be a car, to be honest. And if the board wants me to pay the full amount, I will pay it. Like I said, I'm not gonna ask for too much. I don't feel that I'm in a position to really fight the board over a cost that was incurred over because of my actions.
okay. And then help me understand the relationship between the drug and alcohol counselor and the LVN. Is it, the drug and alcohol counselor is this additional certification to go hand in hand with your LVN, or, I mean, are you working in the same place doing the same job? Just help me connect those two.
I would be able to go, from my understanding, I would be able to go back and forth between each position as a drug and alcohol counselor and as a nurse. With the board that I'm registered with, there is a special certification for an RN. Eventually, I would like to obtain that certification. But even at this level, like I said, it just makes a world of difference to have that medical background when you're working at a drug rehab, when you're working at a methadone clinic, and you see people that are physically ill because of their addiction. When you're just an alcohol and drug counselor, you don't have that knowledge. You don't have that background of how psych meds can interact, how that can affect counseling, what signs to look for if your patient's over medicated. It just makes a world of a difference in treatment to have both of those backgrounds together. There's not very many positions that are integrated yet, but I do foresee a future when nurses working in that field will have to specialize.
Okay. All right, thank you. I have no other questions.
Madam President.
Good morning. So your testimony was, and your packet indicates that you haven't worked since 2011, correct?
Yes.
Without revealing any of your confidential health information, are you physically able to work?
Yes, I'm physically able to work.
Because if your license were to be reinstated on probationary status, there would be a work requirement.
Yes.
Are you physically able to work 20 hours a week, say?
Yes.
Or more? And then there's been talk, you're going to take your test for drug and alcohol counseling certification next month, correct?
Yes.
So you're saying that you could work, because we would need you to work as an LVN.
Yes.
So you're saying that you could work in a facility as an LVN and exercise both
Yes.
Specialties, basically?
Yes. So definitely being an LVN would be my priority, and I would make sure that I meet the requirements that the board needs as far as me working, let's say 20 hours a week. I would definitely make that my priority.
And then on page A3, you had said at the bottom, I have completed all the courses required for entry into an RN program.
Yes.
But now you're saying that you're not planning to do that immediately?
I can only deal with a little bit of stuff at a time. It's too early on. I just moved to a new town.
Sure.
I moved to Santa Maria, so it changes what I had planned
Of course.
and I just really have to take it one day at a time and figure out the job situation, figure out where I'm going to put my children, how I'm going to work that out financially. It's a lot of different factors that I have to think about, and today I just really want to get my license back.
And as Ms. Avella mentioned, on page A4, you had actually indicated no rehabilitation, but then you actually did go through an 18th month.
I think I was confused when I looked at the question. I thought the board was asking me if I had gone to a drug rehab or inpatient alcohol treatment. That's where my confusion was. I didn't see the court-ordered DUI program as rehabilitation because I was ordered by the court. I was confused.
And then I noticed in here, there's also some other references to treatment. So I'm going to point these out to you, and I'm hoping you can explain to me what they are.
Sure.
So on page A18, it says Clínicas del Camino Real.
Yes.
Kristen Wilkerson. It
Yes.
says Ms. Cuevas first received treatment on September 17th, 2014. Since that time, I've seen Ms. Cuevas bi-monthly. Is that recovery program? Is that a alcohol and drug program?
She is a nurse practitioner, and I believe she had a PhD in psychology. So she was essentially acting as a clinical doctor and just making sure that I didn't need medication. I would check in with her as far as how's my counseling going, how my symptoms are, and I went there out of my own accord to just make sure that I'm doing okay.
And then on page A54, Northeast Valley Health Corporation, it says Ms. Navarro enrolled in our DUI program on May 28th. That's the 18-month program?
Yes, that's the 18-month program.
And then you mentioned that you are in counseling or therapy currently. And of course, you don't have to reveal any private information from your counseling sessions. But have you learned anything in counseling or therapy that would help you to be a better nurse?
Everything that I learned there will help me be a better nurse because I've gotten to know myself a lot better. Everything that I've been through has helped me be more compassionate towards people. And I really learned that I am a worthwhile person and that can really do good in life. I don't feel how I felt back when I was going through my downward spiral. I had no confidence. I had low self-worth, and counseling really just built me up, and I feel so much better. And because I feel good and I feel better, I can be a good nurse.
Great. And one last question. I noticed after your DUIs in 2010, you did receive a citation for driving without a license.
Yes.
Do you currently have a fully reinstated driver's license?
I have a fully reinstated driver's license. Yes.
Thank you.
Vice President Rowe.
Good morning. Question for you. On page A8 of the packet, in a letter to the board, you describe yourself as a party girl.
Yes.
And in a letter written by your cousin that we just received, she references that the two of you went out often in your past.
Yes.
So I'm wondering, did you in your past, or what has been your experience if you've had to distance yourself from people that you went out with when you were partying and going out a lot? And what's that experience been like?
I basically have no friends. I have no friends, and just close friends that have been with me through this whole difficult time, that have been a source of support and inspiration And because I changed my lifestyle, all those people just disappeared. That's just how it is when you're not in the party scene, and when you live a healthy, wholesome lifestyle, you just really only have time for family and people who really matter.
At what point for you, you're here sitting before us petitioning to have your license reinstated, and I'm wondering at one point, did that thought first come about? Where were you in your life? What were you doing when you thought, you know what, now was a time when I feel I'm ready to ask the board for my license? How long ago was that? And if you can describe that thought process.
It was towards the end of 2014 when I contacted Mr. Harris again, and I knew that I wasn't psychologically ready yet, but I knew it was time to get the ball rolling and start working on my case and building everything up, start gathering my evidence. I was nervous to come before the board, but I tried to hit as many aspects of my life to make sure that I had a good case and show that I was really serious about asking for my license back.
And I know this has been asked and answered in different ways, but for my own knowledge, because you've been on criminal probation and failed, if the board were to grant you probation on our terms, do you feel confident that you would be able to comply with our probation?
Oh yes, I'm in a totally different space. At the time when I was failing in my criminal probation, I had real financial problems. I had no choice but to work. And after the DUI, I lost a car. I had to take buses for a couple of hours just to get to where I used to work because I was working registry, so I would take 2-hour bus rides just to get to work. And I felt those hardships. And when you have to provide for a daughter, sometimes you make difficult choices. And at that time, it was a really difficult choice. It was the bad choice to get another car and hop in a car and drive. But that's just where I was at in my life. I was the sole provider for my daughter. Her dad lives in another state. And for me, it was, you need to get to work. You need to figure something out and hope things get better. I had no support. That's not the case now.
Thank you.
No questions. I need a little clarification.
Sure.
If you were to receive your license again and successfully completed all of the stipulations associated, in other words, taking the exam and passing, where do you envision yourself working? And let me give you context as to why I asked that. You mentioned moving and being in a community that has very limited resources.
Mm-hmm.
One would assume if there are limited resources, that there probably might also be limited facilities or locations where one might do this work.
Yes.
Given that, have you thought about the potential of employment as a licensed vocational nurse?
I have, and it's much easier to find employment as a licensed vocational nurse than a drug and alcohol counselor, so I've been researching that. I will have to travel if I can't find a job locally, and that won't be, hopefully that won't be a problem, me having to travel. I will just have to suck it up and do whatever it takes to find a job, basically.
Thank you.
Board Member Bertito?
Thank you. Ma'am, I was reading your packet, and under your therapy on page A3, I just need a little bit of a clarification. You're seeing a therapist, Teresa, Lee,
Mhm.
and her title is MFT trainee.
Yes.
Okay. Why aren't you seeing a therapist?
I actually was paying out of my pocket to go to the Cal Lutheran Community Counseling Center, and the reason was because of my insurance, it's very difficult to find a psychologist. The Clínicas del Camino Real, where I went, I actually had to, my counselors, I had to change counselors twice because they would essentially quit and they would struggle to find another counselor. So instead of waiting on a waiting list that I had no idea how long was going to last, I actually chose to pay out of my pocket through Cal Lutheran Community Center because they had subsidized mental health care, basically. And I believe that even though she was a trainee, she was advanced in her education. She was almost done with school, and I think it was very beneficial. She was an excellent therapist, and I only had to pay $10 per session, so it was very, very affordable to me, and I'm very grateful that I had that resource available to me at that time.
Okay. Makes perfect sense, but I'm not used to seeing a trainee listed for a therapist. So was she supervised?
She was supervised. She had a clinical supervisor, yes.
Okay. The other thing, it's been asked, and I just want to clarify. You went through therapy,
Yes.
which you mark as an NA on your application, yet you have a support letter. After you completed this, you did not do any other type of a support group, and not necessarily NAAA. There are other support groups, some church-based, some based in the community. Why didn't you make an effort to find another type of support group to deal with your record of alcohol abuse?
Again, it was just the route that I chose. I find it very difficult to talk about traumatic and personal things in detail in front of people. It's some of the things are very shameful and just really difficult for me to talk to, and I find it to be more comfortable to just talk to one person.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Board Member Norton.
So most of the questions have been asked and answered, and I'm not going to be repetitive. There's just one area that I think hasn't been touched upon yet, and that is that I commend you for everything that you went through and how you turned your life around, because it takes a very dedicated person to do that. But you had a lot of support in that area. You mentioned that you moved. So what is nagging in the back of my mind is, can you see a difference in yourself since you are in a community now with limited resources and don't have the support that you had? And how will you deal with that?
I feel that I have had a pretty good amount of treatment and just education. Like education alone has been so healing, really, and I want the board to know that not a day goes by that I don't live the consequences of what happened. It's been 7 years since my last DUI, since the conviction of my last DUI, and in those 7 years, not a day goes by that I don't live those consequences. And just that daily reminder of how I'm limited in my life because I lost my license is very sobering. But I do have, like I said, strong skills as far as recognizing my symptoms. I have strong skills to be able to self-regulate, and I know where to find resources. Like I said, if I ever find myself in trouble or if I'm not in a healthy place, then I'll drive to Oxnard and go back to the Cal Lutheran Community Counseling Center if I have to. I will do whatever it takes to keep myself healthy for in the long run. This is a lifetime these are lifetime changes that I've made. It's a lifetime commitment to keep myself healthy.
So have you noticed any changes since you moved
Oh,
to the
yes.
smaller?
I'm sorry. I'm at peace. I am able to handle things on my own. In this year, I've had very stressful situations with my teenage children just having behavioral issues because of the move and helping them deal with a move. It was difficult for them. They were in high school, and it was a very difficult time for them, but I was able to be a stabilizing factor in their lives, where at one point in my life, I couldn't even muster up any stability in my own life, but I was able to be a stabilizing factor in their lives and help them through their difficult time, and help my youngest son through his transition into a different town, which was also very difficult for them. I can say that I'm the strongest support of my family, my children, my fiance. They look to me for support, and that just shows me how strong I am and how different I am today.
It certainly appears so. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from any board members? All right, seeing none, is there any follow-up, Mr. Harris?
No follow-up questions, Your Honor.
All right, then thank you very much, Ms. Navarro, for your time and your testimony.
Thank
Will there
you.
be any other evidence for the petitioner, Mr. Harris?
There is no other evidence.
All right. So in this matter, then, the board will have Exhibit 1 and Exhibits A67 through 71 as the documentary evidence to consider, as well as the testimony we've heard. Is there any short summary you'd like to give, Mr. Harris?
Yes, Your Honor, if that's possible. Thank you. Again, members of the board and Your Honor, thank you for your time. I think that what you've heard today is Ms. Cuevas Navarro's deep respect for the board and deep respect for her own rehabilitation. The criterion that you look at is quite simple. What has Ms. Cuevas Navarro done since she lost her license? Does she take responsibility for her conduct? I think the answer is clearly yes. Has she addressed the criminal conduct that led to the revocation? The answer is yes. Her her convictions have been fully expunged. Has she addressed the reasoning that led to those convictions? Her alcohol abuse? The answer is clearly yes. From the counseling, which is evidenced within the packets, to the ongoing education, not only in addictive disorders and behavior, but in drug and alcohol counseling, it's demonstrated her abilities and her necessity to further herself, her education, and her commitment to learning from the past that led her to sit here today. You have seen in the letters submitted here today and those in the original petition a litany of different types of individuals, from clinicians and professors that know Ms. Cuevas Navarro personally, to friends and family, who all speak not only to her sobriety, her changed personal activities, and her commitment. She sits at your behest today. She is not asking for any favors in her own words. In fact, it wasn't strategically, if she may have said that, I apologize, at all to ask for no cost recovery changes. She sits here because she wants her license back to take responsibility for that which was done in the past. And she hopes that you will reinstate her license, and we believe that the criterion of rehabilitation have been met such that she can be licensed. And in her own words, if that means on probation with terms and conditions that protect the public, she is amenable to that. I can speak on her behalf and mine as I thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
Yes, Your Honor. I'd like to commend Ms. Navarro's testimony here today and her appearance. It looks like she has addressed many of the issues that the board was concerned about. I would like to point out, though, that she is here to get her LVN license back. I think the testimony was a bit confusing. Does she want to be a drug and rehab counselor, an LVN, or an RN? Something for the board to consider. Additionally, if Ms. Navarro's license is reinstated, the cost recovery, which we have discussed ad nauseum, must be addressed, and the full amount should be ordered to be recovered. Thank you.
Thank you. The board will take this matter under submission today, deliberate later in closed session, and issue a written decision as soon as practical. Thank you very much. We'll go off the record for this hearing today. We're going to move on pretty shortly to, excuse me, thank you. We're going to move on pretty shortly to the next hearing. There'll be a moment between hearings while we get everything organized and while our reporter gets things reset for the next time. So we won't be taking any formal breaks. So if you do decide to leave the room and come back, if you can do so as quietly as possible, that'll help us keep the proceedings moving along. Thank you. Please, let's come to order. Again, please take your seats as quickly and quietly as possible. I do need to remind everyone, during the proceedings, you need to please remain as quiet as possible and refrain from making any expressions or emotional laughing, giggling, any verbal expressions. Ready? Okay. Thank you. All right, our next petition that is on today's agenda is the petition for reinstatement of Carla Borem. Are we ready to go on the record? All right. We're on the record now in the matter of the reinstatement petition of Carla Borem. This matter has been assigned Office of Administrative Hearings case number 2016-071150, and it comes on for hearing on Thursday, August 25th, 2016 in Los Angeles, California. My name is Administrative Law Judge Juliet Cox, and I'm assigned today to assist the Board of Vocational Nursing and Psychiatric Technicians, which has convened to hear this petition. The first thing I'd like to do is have the appearances by the representatives, beginning with the representative from the Attorney General's office.
Yes, good morning, Your Honor, and members of the board. My name is Vinodini Keller, Deputy Attorney General, appearing on behalf of the people of the state of California, pursuant to Business and Professions Code Section 2878.7 and Government Code Section 11522.
Thank you. I'd like the petitioner please to introduce herself.
My name is Carla Borem, C-A-R-L-A, B-O-R-E-M.
Thank you. And do I understand that you will be representing yourself today?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Many people do, and you observed our previous hearing. Let me just take a moment to make sure that you understand how we'll proceed here. As you saw, the first thing that we'll do is the Deputy Attorney General will present and introduce and summarize the petition that you filed. Then I'll turn the floor over to you. I'll swear you in, and you can give us the information, any additional information statement that you believe the board needs to hear. You may have additional evidence that wasn't included in the package of material that you provided, and you'll have an opportunity, as you saw earlier, to provide that information to the board so that the board members can consider it along with the things that you submitted beforehand. As you saw, after you've given whatever statement you made, the Deputy Attorney General will have an opportunity to ask questions of you to draw out additional information, as will the board members. If you have any other witnesses that you'd like to have testify, you'll be able to call them, and will go through the same process. They'll be sworn, and any question, they can give any information they need to give. And at the conclusion, the board will take all the information and deliberate in closed session later this afternoon about your case. Ultimately, it's your burden to prove to the board that you meet the criteria to have your license reinstated. And so this hearing will be your opportunity to do that. Make sure to ask any questions if you have them as we go along. Do you have any right now?
No, not so
All right,
far.
then. Then I'd like to turn the floor over first to Ms. Keller to present and summarize the matter.
Yes, Your Honor. I'd first like to mark for identification and offer into evidence as Exhibit 1 the original petition packet with accompanying documents. The board members and petitioner have been provided with a copy of the same set of the exhibits. The documents consist of the following: the petition for reinstatement with supporting documents, the petitioner's license certification, the notice of hearing and related correspondence, and finally, the board's 2012 decision revoking petitioner's license.
All right, those documents will be marked and received as Exhibit 1.
Thank you. I would like at this time to offer a summary of Ms. Borum's history with the board. Ms. Borum was issued a vocational nurse license by the board on August 26th of 2004. Prior to receiving her license, Ms. Borum had the following convictions. On April 12th of 2000, Ms. Borum was convicted of 1 misdemeanor for battery against a spouse. Additionally, on February 27th of 1998, she was convicted of 1 misdemeanor for driving when her privileges were suspended or revoked. And on August 1st of 1991, Ms. Borum was convicted of 1 felony count for a grand theft purse snatching. On August 4th of 2004, the board sent Ms. Borum a warning letter letting her know that if there were any further reports that she had violated the law or regulations governing the practice of vocational nursing, that her license could be disciplined. Despite this warning, and after receiving her vocational nurse license, on April 10th of 2010, Ms. Borum was found to be in possession of a controlled substance, which was methamphetamines. She admitted to the police that she was under the influence of said drug. On February 28th of 2012, the board filed an accusation against Ms. Borum's license. Ms. Borum defaulted, and the board adopted the default decision in order to revoke Ms. Borum's license, which was effective December 16th of 2012. Ms. Borum is petitioning the board for reinstatement of her license. In her petition, she states that she has completed an alcohol and drug rehabilitation program and attends 2 to 3 12-step meetings per week. Ms. Borum wants to return to her career and states that she is now capable of making sound and healthy decisions in all aspects of her life. I'm now prepared to proceed with questions for the petitioner, unless petitioner would like to make a statement first.
Thank you.
When
Ms.
can
Borum.
I do have further documentation.
All right.
Can I bring that forward?
You may. What I'd like to do is I'll invite you, as counsel suggested, if you have any statement you'd like to make to begin, I'll swear you in as a witness, and you can explain anything that will bear in mind that the board has received and read your petition, and you may also bring the documents that you have additional so that the board can receive them. So would you like to present the documents first, or would you like to make a statement?
I can make a statement.
All right, let me
All
swear
right.
you in as a witness so that we make sure that we have your statement under oath. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you'll give here today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. Please go ahead.
First of all, I want to thank the board for allowing me the privilege to be here today to begin with. It also gives me the opportunity to make a formal amends, not just to the board, to the profession, and to everyone sitting in this room for the behaviors that have brought me here today. And that I am willing not only to submit what I have currently done and will continue to do as you want me to do in order to get my license back. That's it. The piece.
All right, so Ms. Borum, you've handed me 2 stacks of documents. Each one is, so you have 2 things here that you'd like me to distribute to the board? All right. We have one that's labeled at the top, Safe Refuge, and I'm going to mark that for identification as Exhibit A. Do you need one back? Okay. And the other document that you've handed to me says at the top, nurse support group attendance, and I'm going to mark that for identification on our record as Exhibit B. So I'm distributing copies of Exhibits A and B to the board. Would you like perhaps, you can return to the table if you'd like perhaps to describe what they are.
The first document is the, my performance evaluation that was currently done July 31st by my boss, who is a clinical services director for the program I actually went through and I now currently work for. The second document is signatures that I received for going to a nursing support group that I've been attending on a weekly basis since January.
Thank you. Ms. Keller, is there any objection to receiving Exhibits A and B to supplement Exhibit 1 as the evidence in this case?
No, Your Honor.
Then Exhibits A and B will be received and admitted as evidence. Okay, would you like to ask Ms. Borum any questions?
Yes, Your Honor. Ms. Borum, are there any criminal convictions against you that this board is unaware of?
I believe I got a second under the influence that is not on the documentation, but it should be in the fingerprints.
Okay, and when was that conviction?
It was in the beginning of 2012, but wasn't filed until, I believe, August. It was right before I went into the treatment program.
And what was that conviction for?
Under the influence.
So you were driving under the influence?
No, not driving.
No.
Yeah.
Can you expand a little bit about the circumstances of that conviction?
Basically, I was still using substances and not staying in a safe environment, and where the police came in and I was confronted.
And this was in August of 2012? Is that correct?
No, I went into the program in April of 2012, but it was filed, they filed almost a year later after the occurrence. It occurred, I got this second under the influence, and then I went into treatment, but they didn't file on that charge until after I was currently in treatment.
Okay, and can you let us know when exactly you were convicted of that charge?
Actually, it's been dismissed. It's been dismissed, but I still wanted to present it to the board.
So just to clarify, you were never convicted of this particular charge?
No, sorry.
Okay. Are there any other current or civil charges pending against you in this state or any other jurisdiction?
No.
And what is your sobriety date?
April 13th, 2012.
Are you currently employed?
Yes.
And where are you employed?
I am currently employed at the program that I actually went through. I'm the administrative assistant for the clinical services director.
And how long have you been employed there?
Since September of last year. I also manage a women and children's sober living.
And how long have you been employed at that facility?
Since February of 2015.
Ms. Borum, it appears you have several convictions related to substance abuse or possession of controlled substances. Can you describe for the board what efforts you've made towards rehabilitation?
I entered a residential treatment facility where I stayed in treatment for 90 days, and then after my treatment, I continued to live there in their sober living for 2 years. When I left there, I took on a position as a manager for a sober living that houses women and children. I've, on a weekly basis, I do 2 to 3 12-step meetings. I also took it upon myself to start attending nursing support groups because of the fact that I felt it was important to not only identify with my disease, but identify with other nurses that were in the same situation and get their support. I try to maintain my sobriety like on a daily basis. I do the things that are required around the program. I have an active sponsor that I use, and I actively work on my steps. I'm of service to other people in the program. I really feel that I have dug my heels in, and I will continue, regardless of your decision here today, I will continue to do the things that I need to do to maintain my sobriety for the rest of my life. I had to fully surrender to the disease I suffer from, and I am fully aware of that. I'm fully clear on what that disease consists of and what I have to do on a daily basis so that I never have to go there again.
Okay. And just for clarity, when did you enter that rehab program, and when were you discharged from it?
April 13th, 2012, and I left in January 2015.
I have no further questions, Your Honor. I'd like to turn it over to the board members at this time.
All right. I'd like to invite the board then to ask Ms. Borum questions, and why don't we start this time at the left end, if that's all right, Member Norton.
Good morning. So one of the questions that comes to my mind is you've had some very intensive, and you've surrounded yourself, and you've dug your heels in, as you said, and you're committed to maintaining your sobriety. It seems like you're surrounded, though, with people that can help you with that. I mean, you went from a residential program to a sober living where you continue to live there, and when you left there, you went to work for the very company that you went through the therapy for. So how will you deal with being surrounded by people that are not so supportive back in the environment of nursing and dealing with that?
I do have my nurse support group as well, and by all means, just because I work at the treatment facility, that is not my support group. My support group is the people that I surround myself in the fellowship and that I can actively call on at any given time. And that was one of the main reasons that I also felt it important to join the nursing support group, so that I do have nurses to call on. I do still talk to people in the healthcare field, regardless of whether they deal with the same things that I do. I am not outside seeking outside help if I feel necessary to address anything from being overwhelmed to some of the things that I felt I used substances to cope with different things. I have outside sources to deal with those things today. I'm not afraid to ask for the outside help if I feel that my program falls short.
Okay. So can you identify what triggered you to use substances to cope, and so that you don't repeat those?
Yeah, I had lost a job, and basically once I was pretty devastated, and to be honest with you, I threw my disease into my job, and it separated me from the things I needed to do to maintain my sobriety. I thought it was okay to go out and begin drinking with the nurses, and it's not. It's not. I have a full understanding of that today. You know, what it is for most people, it is not for me. It is not for me. And that's what I did. And once that was set in motion, the progression of my disease went fully active.
Okay.
Mhm.
I believe, what have you done to prepare yourself to re-enter into the profession? Because you've been out for quite a while now. Have you taken any refresher courses, or how will you deal with that? And I believe you will need to take the exam again.
I enrolled in Long Beach City again. I've taken a couple of the courses that required for my degree. I did take sociology. I took Introduction to Addictive Behavior. I started my anatomy course, except it was 1 day, 6 hours. And when I started this job, I want to go back and break it up into 2 courses, 2 days, because it would accommodate a work schedule much better. I actively stay around. I like being around the clinical aspect of the program, because it has also kind of kept me in touch with not so much in the medical aspect, but in the recovery basis of it. I want to continue to go towards an RN and my degree, and I have no problem if you feel that I need to do, whether it be the boards or a refresher course. I have no problem in doing that.
Okay. So you've been out of the sober living place for about, let's see, you left there in January, so for about a year now?
No, more, about 18 months.
18 months?
Yes.
Okay. And how confident are you now that are you living on your own? What are your living arrangements now?
Well, I do manage the sober living, because honestly, when I made the decision and ended up where I'm at today, I took a very large cut in my ability to be self-supportive. I've been working the past few years, but yeah, I mean, I really.
So are you still living at the sober living?
Yeah,
You
I
still-
do live. I live at the Women and Children's one, so that I'm close to be able to manage it.
Okay, so you do still live there. Will you be able to live there if you were to get your license reinstated, would you continue to live there, or would you have to seek living arrangements elsewhere?
Well, I'm currently seeking to get my own place, because I do have a teenage son, and it's just time to move forward. It's time to move forward for me.
So you don't have any real, you haven't experienced that yet. So you went through recovery, you went through rehab, then you went through sober living, then you went through management, and you're still there. You haven't experienced living on your own and dealing without the support.
Well, I am the support at the sober living, basically. I'm of service to the women that are there, but I understand what you're saying, and no, it has not been financially possible for me to do that right now. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, in reality, working in recovery it's not financially lucrative, shall I say? Yeah.
So then just one final question. This was a default decision, which means that you just didn't respond. Was there a reason for that? Or-
I never received the first paperwork because I was no longer living at the address that it went to. So I never received it. I was not even aware.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Board Member Vertito.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Borum, going over your packet, you indicate that you are attending chemical dependency support groups 3 to 4 times, I'm assuming a week. Is that correct?
It's like 3 to 4. 3 to 4. I do 2 or 3 12-step and 1 nursing support, yes.
Okay. The question I have is, the paperwork you submitted in the packet initially and the information you have here only kind of indicates once a week.
And that's the nursing support.
Well, both the nursing support and your other in the packet only indicates maybe once or twice a week, but only records for 1 year. All the dates of your meeting are in 2016.
I wasn't getting anything signed, which is fault of my own, to be honest with you.
So you did not attend meetings as stated 3 to 4 times a week,
No, I did, I just didn't get it on paper.
and you're a nurse. Okay, so the thing being nursing is that if we didn't write it, it never happened, correct?
Correct?
Okay. So I'm going back to 2012, which is your sobriety date, and I roughly have 1 year's worth of meetings when you theoretically have had 4.
Right.
So you see what a big hole that just opened up that we need some clarification on?
I understand that part of where I live and where I was working, or where I was living, both places require that you do 3 meetings a week. I didn't get the documentation. That's fault of my own.
That would have been helpful. I understand also that you have to retake the NCLEX. Based on the length of time that you've been without your license since expiration, you have any problems with that?
No, I don't. I've already pulled up information on a refresher course that takes place in September for 3 or 4 days. So if that was what I have to do, I have already pulled out the information as to which one I'm going to go to.
Okay. Now, my understanding was you've been on probation once before, is that correct? And you were unsuccessful.
I completed that. I believe that probation was for 3 years, and that was completed without any, there was nothing that happened during that probation period.
Okay. All right. I can't get over that pothole. And it is to me, a very significant part of what has gone on in your professional career, and it affects your professional life. Alcohol is a drug.
Correct.
Yeah. And as nurses, we're supposed to be responsible, reliable, trustworthy in our handling of all drugs. And without this documentation, I personally don't feel confident at this point in your ability to handle drugs. Should you find the information or get the documentation, I think it would be very helpful in your case for future reference. Thank you.
Board Member Bastos Martinez.
No questions at this time?
Board Member Mendoza.
No questions at this time.
Vice President Moreno.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning. Can you tell me what your current work schedule is like?
I work 40 hours a week.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, we've had questions about your professional life. I'm interested in knowing you, the person, on your personal life. What happened in your life that led you to substance abuse? What was occurring? How did that happen?
I mean, I wasn't raised, yeah, I mean, I had a father that was an alcoholic, you know, that was, once he was gone, to be honest with you, when I look back, is basically when I started using alcohol to deal with things. I don't know if it was lack of coping skills, or whether the fact that the minute that started happening, that I was unaware of a disease that would grip my life. You know, on the charge that I have on battery against a spouse, to be very honest with you, I was in an abusive relationship, and that was the day that I fought back and came away from that relationship, basically. I also went into a domestic violence / chemical dependency program after that occurred. But I think that had a very large bearing on my self-worth, my confidence, my self-esteem. It all took a hit. And yeah, I just, to be honest with you, I was in denial of the fact that I was an alcoholic. You know, and until I came to grips with that and surrendered to that, it continued to happen, or I continued to be faced with it.
Do you feel that you have been fully rehabilitated?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
And if you can explain and expand on how you can say that so confidently, now speaking to the other side of what you went through.
I basically surround myself with a network of people that I have allowed to get to know me well enough that when I have behaviors that are not conducive to a healthy lifestyle, they are able to basically pull my covers and point those things out so that I can address those situations as they come along. I have a very wonderful sponsor who has 25 years in the program that I talk to on a daily basis, pretty much, very, very often that I don't. I have people, I've learned to keep, not people that I just help, I learned to keep people at all levels of my life so that I have people that I can ask for help from, as long as be of service to others that are in the same position. Yeah.
You're currently living at Safe Refuge,
No.
correct? No?
No. I live at, it's called Acorn House.
Okay. Do you have family? Do you have a partner? Do you have children?
Yes, I do. I brought my son with me today.
There was, in the packet, there was an incident in 2010 where you were publicly intoxicated and there was a child with you. Was that your child?
Yes, it was.
Did you at any point lose custody?
No. Well, his dad actually stepped up and took custody. I now have joint custody with him, and I see him very frequently. We co-parent very well together. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
President James Burris.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Again, when we were talking about the meetings that you attended but you didn't get documented, I think that you said something about, if you could explain, you were, however, living at the sober living house and the meetings were mandatory?
Yes.
And you would have been kicked out if you didn't?
Absolutely.
So they were monitoring you for?
They were, but I didn't lose, when I got my license revoked, it took me a year to set down the bat of guilt and shame and embarrassment that I felt from losing that. And I did not even know at that point if I'd ever be able to be here, sitting in this seat today. Okay, so I did have meeting cards signed, but like I didn't make copies. I have some of them, but not all of them. They're like sitting in my friend's garage that probably, are not in really good condition.
And you were allowed to stay at the sober living house?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, no,
During
you
that
would be
time.
kicked, if you didn't do the requirements that you need to do to stay there,
They would-
yes, they would kick you
And one
out.
of your requirements was to attend meetings?
Yeah, you had to attend a minimum of 3 meetings per week, yes, ma'am.
Then I see on page A4 that you indicated that you do have a sponsor.
Oh, absolutely.
What are you working with your sponsor on right now, like this week? What are you guys working on?
We just finished going over step 3. I did complete 1 through 12 with an AA sponsor. This is an NA sponsor that I chose to go through the NA workbook with her. Yes.
And then on page A6, you say that you stay accountable to your sponsor.
Absolutely.
In what ways does your sponsor hold you accountable?
Because we get together, we have where we get together to go over step work. We just attended a women's luncheon. She holds me accountable to just staying in contact with her.
What would happen if you didn't contact her for a few days?
She'd probably call me to see what was going on with me. Yeah, absolutely. I picked a sponsor that doesn't sugarcoat things.
Good.
Because obviously sugarcoating doesn't work for the nature of my wrongs. I need to hear it very, yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Then on page A13, it's a letter that your sponsor wrote. I believe it's your sponsor, Jamie.
Yes.
Right. And it says, she has observed you to be very motivated in service towards others.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel that's true?
Absolutely.
What motivates you to serve others?
I know what it was like walking in those doors, and I feel it's very important for others, for people to have compassion for others that walk through that door in the same condition I did.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
One last question. Your license was revoked by default in 2012, and you said that your address had changed, you didn't receive the papers. But in 2010, you let your license expire. So
That was my, you know what, the 2010 is what I was thought you were talking about. In 2012, basically, I called the board and asked them, how do I get my license back? And they said, you renew it. And I says, no, because I already knew that the charges that I had incurred I was gonna have to be held accountable for by the board.
Sure.
And so basically, I was calling and letting them know that I knew that it wasn't just about paying for the license to be expired. I let them know at that time that I did have the under the influences and that I was in a residential treatment program. And when they sent me the paperwork, I had a week to send everything back. I was still on probation. So when I had called the board again to ask them about the paperwork, she said that since I was still on probation, I would have to wait 3 years in order to petition because of the fact that I was still on probation at that time.
So yeah, help me to understand. So it's 2010, and you're practicing as an LVN? Were you working as an LVN at that time?
No, not at that time, no.
Why did you stop working as an LVN?
Because I was already in my disease.
So you knew your license was going to be expiring. You're saying you did not receive the renewal paperwork?
No, I didn't receive it at
renewal paperwork.
no, I wasn't living at the address where I was at, but I was already in my, yeah,
And you already weren't practicing. You'd already stopped practicing as a nurse.
yes.
And then in 2012, when the board brought the accusation against you, you did receive that paperwork?
I received, I think was that in December of 2012? Yes, they had sent me the packet. I called her because, and asked her a few questions in regards to that packet, and she asked if I was still on probation, and I had told her yes, and she said that if I was on probation, that at that time I couldn't even petition until I was on probation.
So in that packet that was sent to you, you didn't read in the packet that you could have requested a hearing? You didn't know that?
No, I didn't.
Okay, thank you.
Board Member DeConstein.
Yes, thank you. I'm convinced that both drugs and alcohol were an issue.
Yes.
Was it one or the other, or were they used together?
It started with the alcohol. It started with the alcohol and then went forward, and then yes, both. Yeah,
Okay. So there was a time that both were
absolutely.
abused together?
Yes.
Okay. In the last 6 months, how many times would you say you've had to make that call or reach out for help or get that additional support?
I really haven't. I really haven't. I don't get the flighty ideas, and like I said, on a daily basis, like I keep a active relationship with my sponsor and going to the meetings, and I think that's what's truly helped. I've done enough work to be relieved of that obsession, to be honest with you. Does not mean that it can't return at any given time, but I do the things that I need to do on a daily basis to keep that at bay. So I haven't had to, sir.
All right, thank you. I have no other questions.
Board Member Avella.
I just have a question as clarification on this meeting question. I mean, in this proceeding, board members are allowed to consider and rely upon your testimony and its credibility. So can I ask you again for the record, under oath, how many AA meetings do you attend a week?
I do AANA. I do 2 to 3 a week, and I do 1 nursing support.
So you attend 3 to
3 to
4
4,
meetings
yes,
a
ma'am.
week. And if your sponsor was here today,
Uh-huh.
what would she say? How many meetings do you attend?
Oh, she could attest to that. I also, at one of the meetings that I attend, I have a treasurer commitment. At a second meeting that I have, I have a coffee commitment. So not only do I attend these meetings, I have 2 commitments at the meetings I attend, as well as I keep the other one kind of a floating one to go to outside meetings that, are just different.
Okay, thank you very much.
Board Member Durkin.
Yes, just one item. Ms. Borum, it sounds like you're trying to work the program. I'd encourage you to keep doing that. It works. Just curious, are you serving as anybody's sponsor?
I have one. I have 1 sponsee.
How long have you been a sponsor?
About 4 months.
Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from any board members? All right, seeing none. Will there be any other witnesses then for the petitioner?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Then what we have here as evidence that the board will consider in this case is the petition and supporting documents that are Exhibit 1, as well as the additional Exhibits A and B that we've received. Is there any final brief summary that you'd like to make, Ms. Borum, before we conclude this hearing?
Just for the students that sit here today, just know that when you enter this profession, that you need to maintain your own self-care. Because if you're to promote a healthy lifestyle, you need to live one yourself. And never be afraid that if you get overwhelmed with the workload, because you will, to seek support and help that you see fit. Because we put people's lives in our hands, and we need to take care of ourselves if we're going to do that.
Thank you. Anything else, Ms. Keller?
I'd like to thank Ms. Borum for sharing her story with us today. If the board is so inclined as to reinstate Ms. Borum's license, the order should include term 24, which would require Ms. Borum to retake and pass the licensure exam, as her license has been expired for more than 4 years. And also, there is no costs ordered in this case. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, this will conclude our hearing on Ms. Borum's petition for reinstatement. The board will take this matter under submission today and deliberate in closed session and issue its written decision as soon as practical. Thank you very much. We'll go off the record on this hearing.
Thank you.
Thank you. We can take a short break now for the board. All right.
Yeah, I guess we can do it too.